I used to believe love was enough. That if two people promised to stay loyal, everything else would fall into place. I held on to that belief like a child holds a balloon. Tight, afraid to let go. Arman was everything I ever dreamed of. Smart. Well-spoken, funny in a quiet way. The kind of man who held doors open and remembered how I took my tea. When we got married, everyone said we looked like the perfect couple. Even I believed it. In the beginning, life with him felt like a movie. He left sweet notes on my pillow, brought me flowers after work, kissed me like I was the only woman in the world. I told my friends I was lucky. I smiled too much. Maybe I bragged a little. Looking back now, I wish I hadn't, because behind his soft eyes and perfect words, something else lived, a shadow I couldn't see back then. It started small. He'd glance at his phone and quickly turn the screen. He'd smile too long after reading a message. I remember asking him once, "Who are you texting so late?" He said, "Just Anjali from work. We're on a deadline." Anjali. He always said her name like it meant nothing. Like she was just another colleague, just another name on his phone. But somehow my heart paused every time I heard it. One night we were out for dinner. I was telling him a story about Maya, my best friend, and how she got promoted. He nodded, smiled, but I saw it. His eyes weren't on me. They were on his phone under the table, his thumb moving fast. "Is it Anjali again?" I asked, trying to laugh, to sound casual. He looked up, blinked, and chuckled. "You're being paranoid." Maybe I was. Or maybe he was just really good at lying. I tried to brush it off. I wanted to trust him. I told myself not to be the jealous wife. Love means trust, right? So I kept smiling. I kept making him breakfast, planning weekend dates, laughing at his bad jokes. But something inside me was shifting, quietly, slowly. I remember one night I woke up at 2 a.m. The room was dark. I reached for him, but his side of the bed was empty. I got up and found him in the living room, talking on the phone, in a voice so soft, so familiar, it stopped me in my tracks. He didn't see me. He said, "I miss you too." Then he laughed, not the laugh he gave me, but the one that reached his eyes. That was the first crack. It didn't break me. Not yet. But I felt it. He came back to bed a few minutes later and held me like nothing was wrong. I let him. I let him hold me, thinking maybe if I stayed still long enough, the truth would go away. But deep down, I knew. There was someone else in my marriage, and it wasn't just Anjali. It was the version of him I had never met, the man behind the smile that lied. Nights became the quietest liars. That's when the truth whispered the loudest. It was just past midnight. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying that soft laugh he had on the phone days ago, the way he held me afterward, pretending everything was fine. It stayed with me like a wound I couldn't touch. I turned toward him. He was fast asleep, breathing slow and steady. I should have closed my eyes too, but something tugged at me. A voice in my head that wouldn't let go. I reached over and picked up his phone from the nightstand. I didn't plan to snoop. I really didn't. But my fingers moved before I could stop them. It was unlocked. He trusted me, or maybe he just got careless. Either way, I wish I never opened his messages. There it was. Anjali, no emojis, just her name, plain and familiar. I clicked. The thread. I miss you. I hate pretending. Does she suspect anything? My hands went cold. My breath caught in my throat. The air in the room suddenly felt heavy. I scrolled up. There were weeks' worth of messages. Long, emotional, sometimes flirty, all hidden in plain sight. And him? His replies weren't cold or distant. They were warm. Personal. "I can't talk now, she's next to me. Let's meet this Friday. I'll say it's a late meeting." I felt like I was floating outside my body, watching this all happen. To someone else. He turned in his sleep, murmured something, and pulled the blanket tighter around him. My husband, the man who kissed my forehead goodnight, had been sharing his heart with another woman the whole time. And not just before we got married. After. All this time, I thought I was building a home. But he was decorating a lie. I put the phone back, hands shaking. I curled into myself, hiding my face in the pillow so he wouldn't hear the way I broke. The tears came fast, silent but sharp. Like betrayal had fingers and they were clawing inside me. I didn't wake him. I didn't scream. I didn't even delete the messages. Instead, I did something worse. I stayed silent, because I needed to be sure, because my heart was still stupid enough to hope. Some betrayals don't scream. They sit quietly in corners, waiting for you to catch them with your own eyes. It was a Monday. Arman had just come home from work. He tossed his blazer over the chair, yawned, and kissed my forehead like usual. Routine, predictable. Was folding laundry when I saw it. A faint red mark. Lipstick. Right on the collar of his shirt. It wasn't my color. I stared at it like it might disappear if I blinked hard enough. But it didn't. It just stayed there, bold, messy, and real. I held the shirt up and walked into the living room. He was scrolling on his phone. He didn't even look up. "Arman?" I said quietly. He looked at me then, and I held up the shirt. He stared at it for a second too long. Then he laughed. "That? Oh, Anjali hugged me today. It must have rubbed off. She wears too much makeup, honestly." He said it like it was nothing, like I was nothing. I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just said, "Okay," and walked back to the bedroom. But inside, I was drowning. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding that shirt, pressing the red stain against my fingers. It felt warm, even though it wasn't. Like the heat of betrayal had seeped into the fabric. I couldn't stop imagining it. Her arms around him, her lips close to his neck, her laughing voice in his ear. I wanted to throw the shirt out the window. I wanted to set it on fire. But I just folded it, carefully, slowly, like nothing had happened. That night, I cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't hear. I covered my mouth with a towel so my sobs wouldn't wake him. The mirror fogged up from the shower, and I wrote on it with my finger. "Why me?" No answer came. The next morning, he smiled at me over breakfast and asked if I wanted to go out for dinner this weekend. I said yes, because I needed more time. Not to forgive, not to forget, but to understand how the man I loved had turned into a stranger I had to study in silence. They say you never forget the moment your heart breaks. They're right. It was a Thursday. I remember because I had planned to surprise Arman with his favorite dinner, butter chicken and garlic naan, just like our second date. He called me. Earlier, said he had a late meeting. I said okay, like always. I smiled, like always, but something in his voice felt wrong. So I went home early. The house was quiet when I walked in. The lights were off, except for a soft glow coming from the bedroom. I thought maybe he had come home early too. I opened the door, and there they were, in our bed. Anjali was lying beside him, half-dressed, laughing softly. Arman turned when he heard the door. His smile froze the moment he saw me. Time didn't stop. It shattered. My fingers let go of the food bag I was holding. It dropped to the floor with a crash, but no one moved. The silence was louder than anything I'd ever heard. Anjali sat up. "Aarzoo, I didn't know." "Get out," I whispered. She didn't move fast enough. I said, "Get out." That time, she ran. I stood there staring at the man I married, the man I prayed with, the man who told me I was his forever, sitting in bed with another woman. Our bed. Arman got up, panic on his face. "It's not what it looks like," he said. I laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was the kind that sounds broken, like something inside me had snapped and was trying to crawl out through my throat. "Don't lie to me, Arman. Not now." His jaw tightened. "You're overreacting." Overreacting? My voice rose, shaking. "You cheated on me in our home, in our bed. And you think I'm overreacting?" He looked away. "You always read too much into things." I felt sick. "Were you ever going to tell me?" I asked. Or was I just supposed to keep washing her lipstick off your clothes? He stepped closer. Calm down. Let's talk like adults. Don't touch me. I backed away like he was fire. I didn't know who he was anymore. I didn't even know who I was. The woman who trusted him? She didn't exist anymore. I spent the next few hours crying, screaming, throwing pillows, pacing. He sat there, silent, sometimes arguing, sometimes apologizing. But none of it mattered, because something inside me had died. It was 3 a.m. when he finally broke. I'm sorry, he whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. I don't know what's wrong with me. I messed up. I'll end it. I swear. I'll leave her. I don't want to lose you. I stared at him, face wet, voice dry. Promise me. I promise. And like a fool who still wanted to believe in love, I nodded. I gave him a second chance. I wish I could say that was the end of the pain, but betrayal doesn't end with a promise. Sometimes it just starts there. I wanted to believe him. He swore it. He promised me he would end it with Anjali. He said he didn't want to lose me. He cried. He told me he loved me. And for a moment, just a moment, I almost forgot the shattered pieces of my heart. I wanted to forgive him. I really did. But I wasn't the same anymore. Every time he kissed me, I felt the ghost of her lips on his. Every time he whispered sweet words in my ear, I remembered the lies in his messages. He promised, but a promise didn't erase the reality of what I saw with my own eyes. We tried to move on. Or at least, I tried to make it look like we were. Began to bury the questions, the ones that kept crawling up from the back of my mind. I stopped checking his phone. I stopped asking about Anjali. I pretended everything was fine, and for a while, it almost felt like it could be. Almost. But it didn't take long before I started noticing little things, small cracks in the facade. He was late more often than before. His phone buzzed in the middle of the night, but when I reached over, it was always locked. When I asked, he'd smile, kiss me, and say it was work-related. But his eyes? His eyes always gave him away. He wasn't coming home early from work like he promised. Instead, I found him at odd hours, pretending to be busy with meetings. And each time I asked him about Anjali, he said she was just a colleague, a friend. But I wasn't blind anymore. The friend who had been more than just that. The woman who had once shared his secrets in whispers, who still sent him messages that made him smile the way I used to. One night, I caught him. I wasn't supposed to be awake. But my insomnia had been eating at me again. And there I was, in the middle of the night, when I heard the sound of his phone buzzing on the nightstand. I didn't move at first. I told myself, don't look. Don't check. He promised. But my hand reached out anyway. The screen lit up with her name. Anjali. I felt sick. I didn't read the message. I didn't need to. I'd seen enough. He hadn't stopped. I threw the phone back on the nightstand and closed my eyes, pretending, again, pretending that the woman I married was still in this bed, the woman who trusted him with everything. But the truth was a weight too heavy to ignore. He was still lying. Still choosing her over me, over us. And I was left, holding on to something that wasn't real. When he woke up and saw the phone on the nightstand, his face went pale. Aarzoo, I didn't let him finish. I'm done. I said it quietly, but it was the loudest thing I'd ever said. I'm done, Arman. I can't do this anymore. His face twisted with panic, and I saw the desperation in his eyes. He tried to reach for me, but I stood up and walked to the door. You promised me, and you broke it. I never wanted to hurt you, he said, his voice cracking. I swear I was going to end it. I swear. You don't get to swear anymore, I snapped, my voice sharp with pain. You don't get to lie to me and think I'll just forgive you. His shoulders slumped. Please, Aarzoo, don't leave me. I stared at him, all the hurt, all the anger, all the betrayal flooding through me. You left me long before I ever left you. And with that, I walked out of the bedroom, out of the life I thought was mine. I thought leaving him would be the hardest thing I'd ever do, but walking away wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of everything I had to face alone. Arman begged me to stay. He cried. He tried to promise me that he would change. He tried to remind me of the man he used to be, the man who held me close and made me believe in forever. But the truth was, the man I loved no longer existed. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of his lies. Every time I looked at him, I saw her, Anjali, the woman who had taken his heart long before I ever knew it. I left that night. I packed a few things, clothes, my journal, some photos, and I walked out of the house that I had once called home. The home I had built with love, with trust, with everything I had. I walked out, leaving behind the broken promises, the shattered dreams. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay there anymore. I stayed at Maya's place for a few days. She didn't ask questions, didn't push me for details. She just let me cry. I needed the silence more than anything. I needed time to breathe without him, without the weight of his betrayal on my chest. But even in the silence, I couldn't escape the ache, the feeling of being broken. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to demand answers that I'd never get. But instead, I spent hours staring out the window, questioning everything I thought I knew about love, about trust, about myself. It wasn't just him who had betrayed me. It was me too, for not seeing it, for ignoring the signs, for loving him, even when I should have been stronger, for allowing myself to believe in a man who didn't care enough to be honest. It took a week before I gathered the courage to go back. Not to him, but to our apartment. I needed closure. I needed to walk through those rooms one last time and say goodbye. When I opened the door, it felt like walking into a ghost. The scent of his cologne still lingered in the air, but everything else felt empty, hollow. I went to the bedroom first. The bed was untouched, the sheets cold. I stood there for a long time, letting my fingers trace the edge of the blanket. The place that had once felt like home now felt like a prison. I pulled open the drawer where we kept our shared things, tickets to concerts, the postcards we'd sent each other, the little trinkets we had collected over the years. I closed the drawer quickly, my hand shaking. I couldn't keep it. All of it was tainted now. Every memory had been poisoned by the lies. I went to the kitchen, and there, on the counter, was the jar of my favorite cookies, the one he used to buy for me when he knew I was upset. The same jar I had once filled with joy, laughter, and comfort. Now, it just felt like another reminder of everything I had lost. I picked up the jar and threw it in the trash. It was the first time I allowed myself to let go of the past, to get rid of the things that were holding me in place, that were trapping me in this old life I no longer wanted. Then I heard a knock at the door. I froze. I knew who it was before I opened it. Arman. He stood there, his face a mix of desperation and guilt. Aarzoo, please. We need to talk. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I can't lose you. I cut him off before he could finish. You already lost me, Arman. The moment you chose her over me, you lost me. His face crumpled, and for a second I saw the man I once loved. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. I can't fix this, I said softly. You can't fix this. Not anymore. I watched him take a step back, like the ground had shifted beneath him. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words never came. I knew what he wanted to say. He wanted to beg me to stay, but he didn't understand. It was too late for apologies. It was too late for second chances. I'm done, Arman, I whispered, and for the first time, it didn't feel like I was breaking. It felt like I was healing. I closed the door behind me, not looking back. The hardest part wasn't walking away. It was letting go of the love I had once believed in. The love I thought would last forever. But as I stepped into the unknown, something inside me whispered that maybe, just maybe, I could find peace again. Maybe, just maybe, I could find myself again. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. I used to believe that love was everything, that it was the answer to every question, the solution to every problem. But after everything with Arman, I realized love isn't enough. At least not when it's built on lies and broken promises. Had to learn to love myself again. The first few days after I left him were the hardest. I didn't know who I was without him. For years I had been Arman's wife, the woman who existed in the shadow of his smile, who lived for his approval, his love. But now I was just me. A woman who had to pick up the pieces of a life that was no longer hers. Maya, my best friend, was my lifeline. She never once judged me for staying with Arman as long as I did. She just listened. She let me vent. She let me cry. She let me be angry. "You don't have to have it all figured out," she told me one afternoon, handing me a cup of tea. "One step at a time. You don't have to rush." I wanted to rush. I wanted to fix everything. Fix myself. Fix the mess Arman had made. Fix the hole in my chest. But Maya was right. I couldn't rush the healing process. I had to give myself permission to feel every single emotion. The anger, the sadness, the fear. They all had a place in me, and I couldn't move forward until I acknowledged them. I took up painting again. It used to be my escape, my way of putting my feelings into something tangible. The first painting I made was dark, an abstract swirl of grays and blacks. It felt like my soul, a mix of confusion and pain. But as the days passed, the colors in my artwork began to brighten. I added streaks of blue and purple, hints of warmth in the form of yellow. It was slow, but with each stroke I felt a little lighter, like I was reclaiming a piece of myself that had been buried. I started going to yoga classes. I hadn't exercised in months, too wrapped up in the comfort of his arms, too focused on his needs. But now I was focused on mine. Slowly I became stronger, physically and mentally, and little by little, the quiet whispers of doubt began to fade. The things I thought I'd lost, my confidence, my happiness, my sense of self, were coming back. Not all at once, but in small, steady steps. I realized I was more than just Arman's wife. I was Aarzoo, a woman who had dreams, a woman who had worth. One afternoon, I ran into someone at the coffee shop. A familiar face, someone I hadn't seen in years, Rohan, an old friend from college. He was kind, always with a smile, and we had shared a few laughs back then. I hadn't thought about him in a long time, but that day, his face felt like a lifeline. "Hey, Aarzoo," he said, his eyes bright with recognition. "It's been ages." I smiled, surprised by how natural it felt. It really has. We sat down together and talked for hours, reminiscing about college days and catching up on life. He asked about Arman. At first I hesitated, but then I decided to be honest. I told him everything, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger. And strangely, it felt good to talk about it, to say the words out loud, without the shame and guilt that had followed me for so long. Rohan listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. And when I was done, he simply said, "I'm sorry, Aarzoo, but I'm proud of you. You're stronger than you think." Something about his words stayed with me. I wasn't just surviving. I was growing. I was becoming the person I was meant to be all along. The weeks that followed were a blur of small victories. I cleaned out the apartment, getting rid of anything that reminded me of Arman, the pictures, the gifts, the things that had once been symbols of our love, but now felt like weights around my ankles. One afternoon, as I was sitting on the balcony, a cool breeze blowing through my hair, I realized something important. I had stopped waiting for Arman to fix things. I had stopped waiting for him to come back and apologize, for him to show me that he was sorry, because, in the end, it wasn't about him. It was about me. I had to fix myself. I had to heal. I wasn't whole yet. I wasn't perfect. But I was getting there. One day at a time, and for the first time in months, I felt a little bit of peace. I wasn't expecting him to come back. I thought I was done with him. Thought I had closed that chapter of my life, locked it up tight, and tossed the key into the ocean. I was finally starting to feel whole again, piece by piece. I was learning to live without him, without the constant ache of betrayal. I was starting to understand that the only person who could fix me was me, but life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was sitting on my balcony, my latest painting resting on the Yao easel, when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number, but something made me pause. My heart skipped a beat as the familiar name flashed on the screen. Arman. For a moment, I just stared at the phone. The words I'd wanted to say to him for so long ran through my mind. How dare you? You ruined me. Why now? But none of those words came out. I felt nothing. Nothing but a hollow, empty space where my anger used to be. I didn't pick up. Instead, I let it ring and ring until it stopped, then went straight to voicemail. I could feel the weight of his message hanging in the air. I didn't listen right away. Part of me wanted to hear his apology, to hear him beg for forgiveness like he had the last time. But I wasn't the woman who would fall for that. Again, not anymore. I put the phone down on the table, forcing myself to focus on my painting, on the colors in front of me. But his voicemail notification was there, blinking, taunting me. I had to know. With a deep breath, I opened it. Hey, Aarzoo? It's me. I don't know what to say anymore. I've tried calling you a few times, and I know you're probably not ready to talk, but I miss you. I miss us. I've been thinking about everything, and I can't stop thinking about how much I hurt you. I know it doesn't change anything, but I want to make things right. Please, just let me try. Call me back when you can. The words hung in the air, but they didn't land the way I thought they would. The ache wasn't there. The rush of anger or hurt didn't consume me. There was just emptiness. I thought I would feel something, anything, when I heard his voice. But instead, I just felt tired. Tired of the lies. Tired of the broken promises. Tired of him. I had spent so long waiting for him to fix what he broke, for him to tell me it would all be okay. But now, I knew better. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about whether he could make things right or not. It was about me. It had always been about me. The tears I had cried, the sleepless nights, the endless wondering if I could ever trust again. It was all for nothing. The man who had once been my everything was now a distant memory, one that had no hold over me anymore. I deleted the voicemail without listening to the rest of it. I didn't need to. His words no longer held any power over me. I spent the next few days ignoring his calls. I didn't block him. I didn't need to. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I wasn't afraid of what he could do or say. Because I had already freed myself from the chains he had wrapped around me. I didn't owe him an explanation. I didn't owe him anything. A week passed, and then two, and I heard nothing. He had finally stopped trying to reach me, and for the first time in months, I felt a sense of freedom. Not the kind of freedom you get when you escape a prison, but the kind you find when you realize you never needed the bars in the first place. I was no longer waiting for him to fix things. I wasn't looking for him to apologize. I was building my life again, on my terms. I started going out with friends more. Maya and I went for coffee. I even went to a party once, something I hadn't done in ages. I laughed. I didn't have to. Think about Arman. I didn't have to wonder if he was with her. It was an unfamiliar but beautiful feeling. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I would ever fall in love again, or if I would ever trust a man like I had trusted, Arman. But I did know one thing. I was okay. I was me again, and that was enough. The chapter with Arman was over. For real this time. It's funny how life can change in the blink of an eye. A year ago, I was sitting in the same place, wondering how I could ever move on from Arman. I thought the world would end if I lost him. But here I am now, a completely different person. Never imagined I would find peace in the aftermath of betrayal, but somehow I did. I don't remember exactly when the pain stopped, when the anger I'd carried around for so long melted away. I didn't wake up one day and feel magically healed. It wasn't a sudden revelation or a moment of epiphany. It happened slowly, piece by piece, like the pieces of a broken vase being carefully put back together. I had to let go of the broken pieces first. Only then could I allow myself to heal. I've come to understand that healing isn't linear. Some days I felt stronger than ever. Other days I missed the old version of myself, the one who believed in forever. But little by little, those days grew fewer. The tears didn't come as often. The hurt didn't sting as much. I had to learn to stop blaming myself. I had to stop holding on to the guilt, the doubt that had tormented me for so long. I couldn't change what had happened. What Arman did, it wasn't my fault. He made choices, and so did I. But the difference between then and now is that I am the one who chooses what comes next. One of the hardest parts of healing was forgiving myself. I kept thinking about how I should have known better, how I should have seen the signs, how I should have left sooner. I thought about the time I had wasted, the trust I had given to someone who didn't deserve it. But eventually, I came to understand that forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about letting go of the power the past holds over you. It's about releasing yourself from the anger and the resentment that can keep you stuck in a place you don't belong. I had to forgive myself for loving him so completely, for thinking that someone like Arman could love me the same way. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to feel whole again. I spent more time focusing on the things I had neglected for so long, my passions, my goals, my happiness. I started my own art exhibit. It was a small one, just in a local gallery, but it was mine. I had poured so much of my soul into those paintings. They were the only things that truly understood me, that didn't judge me or leave me. That exhibit was the moment. I realized how far I'd come. The crowd that came to see my work was full of strangers, but as I stood there, watching people appreciate the paintings, I felt a sense of pride I hadn't felt in years. I had built this from nothing. I had created something beautiful from the ashes of my heartbreak. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living again. There were still moments when I thought about Arman, when the memories of our time together tried to creep into my mind. But I no longer felt the pain when I thought of him. I no longer felt the need for closure or answers. What I needed most was to find peace within myself. And that's exactly what I was doing. I still didn't know what the future held, but I was finally excited to find out. I wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. I had learned to embrace my own company. I had learned to value my own happiness. Maya told me once that I would find someone who deserved me. But the truth is, I'm not waiting for anyone. I don't need anyone to complete me. I'm already whole. The truth is, I'm okay with being on my own right now. I'm okay with taking my time. I'm okay with loving myself first. The past will always be there, but it no longer defines me. It no longer holds power over my future. I have my own story to write, and for the first time, I'm excited to see what comes next. I used to think that closure was something you could find, that if you just waited long enough, everything would make sense, and the pain would fade into the background. I thought if I could just have one final conversation with Arman, one last moment to explain myself, to hear him apologize, then I would finally be able to move on. But now I realize that closure doesn't come from another person. It doesn't come from an apology or an explanation. It comes from within. It's something you create for yourself, piece by piece. And for the first time in a long time, I feel complete. The past few months have been transformative, not just in the way I've healed, but in the way I've learned to embrace life without the weight of someone else's choices dragging me down. I don't need Arman's approval, or his love, or his regret. I don't need him to validate my worth. I've found my own strength, my own worth, and that is more than enough. I've stopped looking back. I've stopped wishing things had turned out differently. What's done is done, and I can't change it. But I can change how I move forward. There's a quiet power in letting go. I never thought I'd feel this peaceful, this strong. But here, I am, standing on the edge of a future I've built with my own hands. I don't think I'll ever forget the lessons I learned from Arman. The pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak, they were all part of the journey. But now, they don't define me. They're just chapters in my story, and those chapters are over. I've realized that true strength doesn't come from holding on. It comes from knowing when to let go. I've forgiven myself. I've forgiven him, not because he deserves it, but because I deserve peace. I deserve to move on without the burden of anger or resentment weighing me down. I'm not the same person I was when I walked out the door that final time. The woman who left Arman was fragile, broken, lost. But the woman standing here today? She's stronger, she's wiser, she's whole. I'm not afraid of what comes next anymore. I'm not afraid of being alone. I'm not afraid of loving again, if that's what the future holds. But for now, I'm just living. I'm living for myself, for the person I've become and the person I'm still becoming. As I stand in front of my latest painting, I realize how much it represents my journey. It started out as a mess of confusion and pain, just like I did. But with time, with patience, it transformed into something beautiful. Something that tells the story of who I am now, not who I was before. The future is a blank canvas, and I'm the one holding the brush. Whatever comes next, I'm ready. Shattered promises may have ended, but my story is just beginning. And this time, I'm the one in control.